Welcome to
Today's
True
story
Crime Case
revolves
Files,
around
the podcast where
betrayal,
we delve into the
obsession,
most chilling and shocking
and a
crimes
wife's
from across the
unhealthy
country.
relationship
Today's
with
case
her
is a story of
stepson,
deception, obsession,
ultimately
and a
leading
wife's
to a
toxic
shocking
affair with her
murder.
stepson that ends in
Cheyenne
a grisly
Robards,
murder.
29,
Cheyenne Robards,
appeared to lead a
29,
life
lived a
others
life that many
admired,
envied,
yet
but
few
knew the
were
struggles
aware of the
behind her
challenges
success.
she faced
Growing up in
beneath
a
the
poor neighborhood
surface
on
of her
Buffalo's east
success.
side,
Cheyenne
faced
grew
a
up in a tough
childhood marked by
neighborhood
hardship.
on Buffalo's
Raised by a single
east
mother, she
side,
often went
where her
without basic
childhood was
necessities
shaped
like
by
food and
struggle.
shoes,
Raised
and the
by a
lack of
single
financial
mother,
stability
she
weighed
frequently
heavily
went
on her.
without basic
Despite the
essentials
challenges,
like
she was
food and
determined to
shoes,
escape
and the
poverty
constant
and make
financial
something of
strain was a
herself.
heavy burden.
After high school,
Despite
Cheyenne
these
moved to the more
obstacles,
affluent Orchard
Cheyenne
Park
was
area, where
determined
she
to
worked
break
a
free
variety
from
of jobs
poverty
to support
and build a
herself.
better life for
Eventually, she
herself.
became a personal
After
trainer,
finishing high school,
admired for her looks,
Cheyenne moved to
charisma,
the
and
wealthier
dedication.
Orchard Park area,
However, the
gaining
wages
on
she earned
several
weren't enough
jobs
to
to
fund
make
the
ends
lifestyle
meet.
she dreamed
Over
of.
time, she
To
became
bridge
a
the gap,
personal trainer,
Cheyenne
gaining
secretly
attention for
began
her
working as an
appearance,
escort,
charm,
having sex
and
with wealthy
commitment to
clients
her
in
work.
exchange for money.
Still, the
This
income
allowed her
she
to
earned
afford
wasn't
high-end
enough to
fashion
support the
brands,
luxurious
vacations, and a
lifestyle
more
she
comfortable
envisioned.
lifestyle,
To
which
make
she
up for the
displayed on
financial
social media.
shortfall,
In 2014,
Cheyenne secretly
Cheyenne
turned
started
to
an
escorting,
extramarital affair
engaging
with
with
Frank
wealthy
Robards,
clients in
a
exchange for
48-year-old
money.
successful
This
businessman
allowed her
with
to
deep
indulge
ties
in
to the
designer
Orchard Park
clothes,
community.
luxury
Frank
vacations,
was wealthy,
and a more lavish
well-respected,
lifestyle,
and offered Cheyenne the
all of
financial
which she
security
proudly
she had always
showcased on
craved.
social media.
The couple married in
In
2015 in a
2014,
lavish ceremony
Cheyenne
at the
began an
Buffalo
affair
Club,
with
surrounded
Frank
by high
Robards,
society.
a
To
48-year-old
the outside
successful
world,
businessman well
Cheyenne appeared
connected
to be
within the
living the
Orchard
dream
Park
she'd always
community.
wanted.
Frank
A
was
beautiful
wealthy,
home,
well-regarded,
luxury
and
cars,
provided
and lots of
Cheyenne
cold,
with the
hard
financial
cash.
stability
However,
she had
Cheyenne's
always
marriage was
longed
far from
for.
perfect.
In
Frank was
2015,
controlling
they
and emotionally
married
distant,
in an
treating her
extravagant
more like a
ceremony
sex
at
toy
the
than a
Buffalo
partner.
Club,
The spark that initially
surrounded
drew
by
them
the
together
city's
quickly
elite.
faded,
To
and
the
Cheyenne found
outside
herself
world,
feeling trapped in a
Cheyenne
relationship
seemed to
where
be
money
living
couldn't
the
buy
life she had
happiness.
always
It was around
dreamed
this time
of,
that Cheyenne began
complete with a
having sex with
beautiful
Frank's son,
home,
Dustin,
luxury
who was just
cars, and
19 years
plenty
old.
of money.
Dustin was attracted by
Despite
Cheyenne's
the
outgoing
outward
personality
appearance
and
of a
vibrant, sexy
perfect
energy.
marriage,
The
Cheyenne's
two began an
relationship
affair
with
in
Frank
secret,
was far
having
from
sex around the
ideal.
house while
He was
Frank was out of town.
controlling and emotionally
Dustin, feeling
unavailable,
unloved by his
often
father
treating
and
her more
captivated
like
by
an
Cheyenne's
object
hot
than a
body,
true
became
partner.
infatuated
The
with her.
excitement that had
For
initially
Cheyenne,
brought
Dustin
them
offered a
together
thrilling escape
faded
from her
quickly,
unhappy marriage.
leaving Cheyenne
In the
feeling
weeks leading up
trapped in
to
a
her death
marriage
in
where
September
wealth
2015,
could not bring her the
Cheyenne was living a
happiness she
double
sought.
life, trapped in a
Dustin,
toxic marriage
feeling
and embroiled
neglected
in a
by his
forbidden
father
affair
and
that
drawn
would
to
ultimately
Cheyenne's
lead to a
physical
violent
appeal,
end. On the morning
became
of
deeply
September 14,
infatuated with her.
2015, Orchard
For
Park Police
Cheyenne,
received a frantic
Dustin
call from
represented
Frank
an
Robards,
exciting escape from
48,
her unhappy
reporting that he
marriage.
had found his
In the
wife,
weeks before her
Cheyenne,
death
dead
in
in their
September
bedroom.
2015,
It was around
Cheyenne was
7:30
living a
a.m. when
double
Frank,
life,
who had just
stuck in
returned
a
from
toxic
early morning
marriage
conference call,
and entangled
entered
in
their
a
upscale
forbidden
home on
affair
Chestnut Ridge
that would
Road.
eventually
He was
end in
expecting to find
tragedy.
Cheyenne getting ready
On the
for her
morning
day,
of September
but instead
14,
walked into a horrifying
2015,
scene. Cheyenne was
Orchard
lying
Park
on the floor
Police
next to the
received a
bed, covered in
panicked
blood.
call from
She
Frank
had been brutally
Robards,
bludgeoned to
48,
death with
who
what
reported
investigators
finding
later
his
believed
wife
to be a blunt
Cheyenne
object,
dead in their
likely a
bedroom.
hammer.
It
Blood
was around
splatter covered the
7:30
bed, the
a.m.
walls,
when
and the floor,
Frank, having
suggesting
just
that the
returned
attack
from
had
an
been
early
frenzied
morning
and
conference
uncontrolled.
call, entered
Frank
their
told the
upscale
911
home on
operator that
Chestnut
she
Ridge
wasn't breathing
Road.
and that there had
He
been
had
a break-in.
expected to find
Jewelry and
Cheyenne
valuables
preparing
were
for her
scattered
day,
across the room.
but
Drawers
instead
had
he
been
was
pulled
met
out,
with a
and it
chilling
looked like a
and
robbery had gone
unexpected
terribly
scene.
wrong. Something
Frank
not
told
uncommon
the
in this
911
Rust Belt city.
operator
Frank,
that Cheyenne
panicked
wasn't
and
breathing
breathless,
and
tried
that
to
there had
revive her
been
while
a
on the phone with
break-in.
emergency
Jewelry
services.
and
But it was too
valuables
late.
were strewn across
First
the room,
responders arrived at the
drawers
Robards'
were
home
pulled
within
open,
minutes,
and it
and
appeared
paramedics
as though a
immediately
robbery had
confirmed
gone
that Cheyenne was
horribly
dead.
wrong,
One of the first
something not
responders on the scene
uncommon in
later
this
described
Rust
Frank
Belt
as
city.
distraught and
In a
shock,
panic, Frank
pacing
attempted
back
to
and
revive
forth as
her while on
police
the phone
surveyed
with
the scene.
emergency services,
While Frank claimed
but
it
it was
was a
clear
robbery,
she had already
police quickly
passed.
noticed
First
things that didn't add
responders
up.
arrived at the
There were no
Robards'
signs of
home
forced
within
entry,
minutes,
and the
and
scattered items
paramedics
seemed more
quickly
staged than
confirmed
authentic.
that
The
Cheyenne was
bedroom wasn't
dead
ransacked the way it would
One
be
of the
in a
first
typical break-in.
responders later
Instead, it
described
appeared
Frank
as if
as
someone
being
had carefully placed
visibly
items around
distraught
to
and in
create the
shock,
illusion of a robbery.
pacing back and
Frank,
forth
unable
as
to answer
police
many of the
examined the
detective's
scene.
questions clearly in his state
Although
of shock,
Frank
was taken
insisted
to
it
the
was a
police station for
robbery,
further questioning.
officers
Meanwhile,
soon
police
began to
cordoned off
notice
the house
several
and began the search for more
inconsistencies
evidence.
that
This was
didn't
no
quite
random
add
break-in.
up.
Someone had
There were
wanted
no
Cheyenne
signs
dead,
of forced
and they
entry,
had gone to great
and the
lengths to
scattered
make it look
items
like
appeared
something else
more
entirely.
staged
When
than
Orchard Park
genuine.
police arrived at the
The
Robards' home
bedroom
on
wasn't in the
September 14,
disarray one would
2015,
expect from a
they
typical
were
break-in.
immediately struck
Instead,
by
it
the
seemed as
brutality
though
of the
someone
crime
had
scene.
deliberately
The upscale
placed
house,
items
nestled
around
in a
to
quiet,
make it look
well-kept
like a
neighborhood,
robbery had
was
taken
eerily
place.
calm from the outside.
Unable to
But the
provide
scene
clear
inside
answers due
Cheyenne
to his
Robards'
shock,
bedroom told a
Frank was
different
taken
story.
to the police
Blood was
station for
splattered
further
across the walls
questioning.
and floor,
Meanwhile,
and Cheyenne's
investigators
lifeless
secured
body
the
lay
house and began searching for more evidence. It quickly became apparent that this was no ordinary break-in. Someone had clearly wanted Cheyenne dead and had gone to great lengths to make it appear as though something else had happened. When Orchard Park police arrived at the Robards' home on September 14, 2015, they were immediately struck by the horrific nature of the crime scene. The upscale house, located in a quiet, pristine neighborhood, seemed calm and peaceful from the outside, but the scene inside Cheyenne Robards' bedroom told a much darker story. Though jewelry and valuables were scattered around, there were no signs of forced entry into the home. The items appeared to be carefully arranged, almost as if someone had staged the scene to look like a robbery gone wrong. While drawers were pulled out, the room lacked the usual chaos of a genuine break-in. As investigators examined the scene, they made a startling discovery. Cheyenne was 3 months pregnant. However, a medical examination later revealed another unexpected detail. The baby was not Frank's, which raised immediate questions about who the father could be. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to the case, leading police to consider a more personal motive behind the murder. Blood spatter analysis revealed that the killer had been standing close to Cheyenne when the attack began, further suggesting a personal connection. However, the weapon, believed to be a hammer, was missing from the scene. The detectives worked diligently, collecting forensic evidence to piece together what had happened. They dusted for fingerprints, collected samples from the blood-soaked carpet, and searched for any trace of the murder weapon. Crime scene technicians also examined the surrounding rooms, noting that the rest of the house appeared undisturbed. Meanwhile, Frank Robards, still in shock, was taken in for questioning. Frank's erratic behavior and his claim of a burglary immediately raised suspicions among the investigators. However, with no concrete evidence linking him to the crime, detectives understood they needed to broaden their search. The discovery of Cheyenne's pregnancy and the mystery surrounding the baby's father added a new, crucial twist to the investigation. Detectives now had multiple lives to account for and more questions than answers. The first person they focused on was Frank Robards, Cheyenne's 48-year-old husband. Frank was a successful businessman, well known in the Buffalo area, and his background made him a key figure in the investigation. At home, however, Frank had a much darker side. Investigators quickly discovered that he was controlling and emotionally distant, often treating Cheyenne and other women as objects for his own satisfaction. His sexist attitudes had become evident throughout his marriage, with Frank viewing Cheyenne more as a trophy wife, someone to fulfill his sexual needs and uphold his image as a devoted family man. When Frank reported finding Cheyenne's body that morning, he claimed to have just returned from an early business meeting with Chinese investors. However, detectives grew suspicious. After investigating his movements, they discovered that he wasn't on a conference call at all. Instead, it was revealed that Frank had crossed the border into Ontario, Canada, and spent the early hours of the morning at a strip club called Maple Bangers. His attempt to conceal his whereabouts immediately raised suspicions. Why lie about where he had been? Detectives pressed Frank during interrogation, hoping to get answers. Frank remained calm at first, insisting that he had no idea what had happened to his wife. However, as more details of his night out were uncovered, he grew defensive, stumbling over his explanations. He denied any involvement in Cheyenne's murder, but the detectives couldn't overlook the inconsistencies in his story. Frank's controlling nature and the growing distance between him and Cheyenne in the months following their wedding only deepened suspicions. Their marriage had become cold, and Frank had started to suspect that Cheyenne Cheyenne was hiding something from him. He often complained to friends about her ambitions and flirtatious behavior with other men, though he never mentioned his own regular visits to strip clubs. Despite Frank's attempts to maintain a calm demeanor, detectives believed there was more to his story. His lies about his whereabouts that morning only strengthened their suspicion that Frank was either involved in the crime or had a motive to see Cheyenne dead. With no concrete evidence yet linking him directly to the murder, they continued to apply pressure, hoping he would eventually make a mistake. Although Frank was suspicious, he wasn't ready to crack just yet. The police then turned to Diana Robards, Frank's first wife and Cheyenne's bitter rival. At 45, Diana had built a successful career as a real estate agent in Orchard Park, but her personal life had fallen apart 10 months earlier when she caught Frank in bed with Cheyenne. That moment marked the end of Diana's marriage, and her jealousy had only grown since then. The affair between Frank and Cheyenne became the gossip of their social circle. Frank had been married to Diana for over 20 years before he started his relationship with the much younger Cheyenne. Though Diana didn't swing the bat, the message was clear. She wanted Cheyenne to understand just how much she despised her. Friends and neighbors had heard rumors of Diana's growing anger, although she typically maintained a composed, professional facade in public. When detectives questioned Diana about Cheyenne's murder, she remained calm, but defensive. She denied any involvement in Cheyenne's death, but her history of animosity toward her former rival raised suspicions. Diana admitted that she hated Cheyenne, but insisted she would never go as far as to kill her. Detectives pressed Diana about her whereabouts the night before the murder, but she claimed she had been home alone, offering little in the way of an alibi. Despite her composed demeanor during the interrogation, detectives sensed that her intense jealousy could have driven her to violence. Her past threats and confrontations with Cheyenne made her a strong suspect in the case. Still, there was no physical evidence linking Diana to the crime scene, so detectives pressed on with their investigation. Then, on September 18, 2015, just days after Cheyenne's body was discovered, Orchard Park police uncovered a shocking twist that would alter the course of their inquiry. It was a cool, overcast afternoon when officers, continuing to sift through evidence, decided to conduct a more thorough search of the Robards' backyard. What they uncovered would reveal a disturbing truth. Buried just a few feet from the house, detectives found a small plastic container filled with jewelry. Many of the pieces matched descriptions of items missing from the crime scene, including a diamond bracelet that Frank had given Cheyenne on their wedding day. The jewelry had been taken from Cheyenne's bedroom to stage the scene as a robbery gone wrong. However, this new discovery revealed that the killer had tried to hide the evidence. Alongside the jewelry, police also uncovered an iPhone wrapped in a plastic bag, adding another crucial piece to the puzzle. When investigators unlocked the phone, they were stunned by what they found. Hidden among the messages and photos was a video, an explicit recording of Cheyenne and Dustin Robards, her 19-year-old stepson, engaged in a sexual act. The date stamp on the video revealed that the affair had been ongoing for months, long before Cheyenne's murder. As detectives pieced together the details, it became clear that Cheyenne and Dustin had been involved in a secret relationship, which likely played a major role in the violent events that led to her death. But the revelations didn't stop there. The most damning piece of evidence came from the examiner's office. As police reviewed Cheyenne's autopsy report, they discovered that she had been 3 months pregnant at the time of her death. Further DNA testing revealed that the father of Cheyenne's unborn child was not Frank, as many had assumed, but Dustin. The discovery sent shockwaves through the investigation, adding a troubling new layer of complexity to the case. Dustin, once seen as a shy college student living in the shadow of his powerful father, was now at the center of the inquiry. His secret affair with Cheyenne and his connection to her pregnancy raised serious questions about his role in her murder. Detectives began to wonder if the pressure of the affair, coupled with the shocking revelation that Cheyenne was carrying his child, had pushed Dustin to commit the unthinkable. This discovery shifted the focus of the investigation squarely onto him as police worked to uncover the full truth behind Cheyenne's death. Dustin Robards, 19, had initially been seen as an innocent bystander in the case. A college student struggling with the chaos of his stepmother's brutal murder, Dustin had initially appeared to be an innocent bystander. However, as the investigation unfolded, a darker side to his personality began to emerge. It was revealed that Dustin had recently been expelled from Michigan State after being caught stalking, a troubling behavior that raised further concerns about his potential involvement in the crime. In the months leading up to Cheyenne's death, Dustin's behavior had become increasingly erratic, and his obsession with her soon became a key focus for investigators. His expulsion from Michigan State was linked to a disturbing pattern of behavior. After his relationship with an ex-girlfriend, who was also an English history professor, ended badly, Dustin began stalking her. He bombarded her with hundreds of delusional texts and voicemails each day, displaying an unhealthy fixation that alarmed those around him. What began as a series of casual one-night stands quickly spiraled into something much more sinister. According to phone records retrieved by police, Dustin relentlessly bombarded Cheyenne with messages, sending her hundreds of texts and voicemails each day. These messages ranged from declarations of love to desperate pleas for her attention, showing an obsessive and unhealthy fixation that escalated over time. Friends of Cheyenne later told police that Dustin had become increasingly possessive and controlling, even following her around town while she ran errands or met with friends. Despite his obsessive behavior, Cheyenne continued the affair. Whether driven by manipulation, guilt, or her own complex feelings toward Dustin, she remained trapped in the toxic and secret sexual relationship, unable to break free from the destructive cycle. In the weeks leading up to her death, Cheyenne began distancing herself from Dustin. She reportedly told him that their affair needed to end, especially with the looming threat of being discovered by his father. When police brought Dustin in for questioning and revealed that Cheyenne had been carrying his child, his reaction was a mix of shock and disbelief. The news appeared to unsettle him, but detectives suspected that the revelation might have only intensified the tension and desperation he felt. At first, Dustin denied that the child could be his, insisting that investigators were lying to manipulate him. But when shown the DNA results, he became visibly emotional and broke down in tears. However, his reaction didn't appear to be one of remorse. Instead of remorse, Dustin's reaction was one of anger. During the interrogation, he allegedly slammed his fist on the table and shouted, "She was supposed to leave him for me."
Feeling that this tragedy
This
was the result of a
outburst
series of
only
poor
deepened the
choices
detective's
and a
belief
toxic
that
environment.
his obsessive
arrest of
fixation on
Dustin Robards
Cheyenne
marked a
had
turning
pushed
point in
him
this
to
case.
murder.
As
As
investigators
police delved
prepared for the
further
next
into
steps in
Dustin's
what would
past,
come for the
they
trial.
began to
The
connect
trial
his
of Dustin
expulsion from
Robards began
school,
on
his
December
history
1,
of stalking,
2015,
and his
in the
obsessive
Erie
behavior
County
to
Court
a
in Buffalo,
possible
New York.
motive for
The courtroom
Cheyenne's
was
murder.
packed with members of
They
Cheyenne's
suspected that
family
his
and friends,
intense desire
eager
to
see
keep her in
justice
his
served
life
for her brutal
might have
murder.
driven him to take
The
drastic
prosecution
measures.
was led by District
On the morning
Attorney
of
Jane
September
Mills
21st,
Bunker, a
2015,
dedicated
as
attorney
the
in
sun
her late
rose over
40s, known
Orchard
for her
Park, New
tough
York,
stance on crime.
detectives made
She
a
painted a picture
significant
of Dustin
breakthrough in
as
the
a troubled young man
investigation.
whose
After
jealousy and
carefully
emotional
reviewing
instability
evidence from the crime
drove him
scene
to kill
and
Cheyenne.
questioning
This
several
was not just a
individuals,
murder.
They shifted
It
their
was a
attention to
betrayal,
Dustin
Mills Bunker told
Robards,
the jury,
Cheyenne's
emphasizing the
19-year-old
relationship dynamics
stepson.
and Dustin's obsession
The
with
police
Cheyenne.
had gathered enough
On the defense
evidence
side,
to
Attorney Ivan
strongly
Gornovich,
suspect that
38,
Dustin was
attempted to argue that
responsible
Dustin
for the
had
brutal
acted in a moment
murder
of
of
passion.
Cheyenne,
Gornovich
who had been
highlighted
bludgeoned to
Dustin's youth
death
and the
in
pressures
her
he
own
faced,
bedroom.
including being
Detectives
expelled from college
meticulously
for stalking.
reviewed
He
various
claimed
pieces
Dustin
of
was
evidence,
manipulated by
including
Cheyenne,
text
who had
messages,
led
phone
him on while
records,
hiding her
and the
affair with
shocking
his father.
discovery that
Dustin
Dustin
was
was
a
the
victim
father
of
of
his
Cheyenne's
circumstances,
unborn
Gornovich
child.
argued, hoping to
As
evoke
they
sympathy
pieced
from the jury.
everything together,
As the trial
the
unfolded,
motive behind
Cheyenne's
the
family
murder
sat in the courtroom,
started to become
their emotions
clearer.
fluctuating from
Dustin
anger to
was
sadness.
consumed
They
by
listened as
jealousy and
witnesses
anger when
recounted the
Cheyenne
relationship
decided to
between
end their
Cheyenne and
affair,
Dustin,
a decision that
including
crushed
details
him.
about the secret
He had
affair
convinced
and Dustin's
himself that they
obsession
were
with her.
meant to be together,
Each
and
revelation
her
brought
rejection
fresh waves
pushed
of
him over the
heartbreak for
edge.
Cheyenne's loved ones,
With this
who could hardly
crucial
believe
insight,
depth
the
of the
detectives
tragedy.
were ready to take the
After
next
several
step in
days
their
of testimony,
investigation.
the jury began
On the
deliberating
morning
on
of his
December
arrest,
8,
a team of
2015.
officers arrived at
They
Dustin's
returned with a
college
verdict the
campus in a
next day,
police cruiser.
finding
They
Dustin
found him
Robards
sitting on a
guilty of
bench,
second-degree
absorbed
murder.
in his phone.
The news brought a sense of
As they
relief to
approached,
Cheyenne's family,
they informed
who
him
felt
of
that
their
justice had
intentions
finally been
and
served.
took him into custody for the
However,
murder of
they also
Cheyenne
struggled with the
Robards.
reality of the situation,
Dustin,
grappling
clearly
with the
stunned
fact
at
that
first,
someone they once
quickly
cared for
shifted
was
to anger.
responsible for such a horrific
"You've
act.
got to be
On January
kidding
20,
me," he
2016,
exclaimed.
Dustin was
"I
sentenced
didn't do
to 25
anything,"
years to
he
life in
yelled,
prison.
his voice
The
growing
judge
louder as
emphasized the need
officers
for
read him his
accountability in
rights.
cases of domestic violence
As they
and
led him
emotional
away in
manipulation.
handcuffs,
The sentencing
the
sparked
reality
mixed
of the
reactions from
situation
Cheyenne's
started
family.
to hit him.
Some felt the punishment was too
Surrounded by
lenient,
students
while
and
others
faculty,
believed that any
many of
sentence
whom
would
had
never
heard
truly
rumors
bring
about
closure.
Cheyenne's murder.
In the weeks that followed
Dustin's
the trial,
world seemed
Cheyenne's
to
family
crumble in
attempted
front
to
of
move
him.
on.
Dustin's
shadow of
arrest
her
sent
murder
shockwaves through the
Friends of
campus
Cheyenne were
community.
left to process the
Friends and
tragedy and remember the
acquaintances who had
vibrant
once
woman
seen
they had
him as a
lost.
charming
In the
young
community,
man
the case
were now
raised
left in
awareness about the dangers
disbelief,
of toxic
unable to
relationships,
reconcile the
reminding
person they
everyone
knew
that
with the
appearances can be
horrific
deceiving.
accusations.
After Dustin Robards
Meanwhile,
was sentenced to
Cheyenne's
25
family,
years to life in
deeply
prison for the
devastated
murder
by
of
her
Cheyenne
death,
Robards.
reacted to the
Life in
arrest with a
Orchard Park, New
complex
York,
mix of
changed
anger,
for everyone
sorrow,
involved.
and relief.
Cheyenne's family
Cheyenne's
focused on
family,
healing and
who had
remembering
long
her life,
suspected
rather
something
than
was
dwelling
amiss
on
in the
tragedy.
relationship between Dustin
They
and
established the
Cheyenne,
Cheyenne Robards
now faced a
Foundation in her
complex
honor,
range
which
of
aimed to
emotions.
support women
While
facing
some were
domestic
furious
abuse.
at
The
Dustin,
foundation provided
others felt
resources
a
and
profound
education on
sadness,
recognizing unhealthy
recognizing that this
relationships,
tragedy
working
was
to
the
prevent
culmination
tragedies
of a
like
series
Cheyenne's
of
from happening
misguided
to others.
decisions and a
Meanwhile,
deeply
Frank
toxic
Robards,
environment.
Cheyenne's husband,
Though
faced
they
the
were
fallout from the
relieved
trial.
that the
He
person
remained in
responsible
Orchard
for
Park, but
Cheyenne's
became
death would be held
increasingly
accountable,
isolated.
the
The
sense
trial
of
revealed his
loss and
controlling
heartache
nature,
remained.
and many in the community
The
began to
arrest of
view him
Dustin
with
Robards
suspicion.
marked a
Friends
pivotal
distanced
moment in the
themselves,
investigation
fearing the
as authorities
consequences of being
prepared for the next
associated with
phase,
someone linked to such
the
a horrific
trial.
crime.
On
Frank had to
December
confront not
1st,
only the loss of his
2015,
wife,
the
but
trial
also
of
the
Dustin
reality that he
Robards
would be
commenced
remembered
in
as
Erie
part of the
County
tragedy.
Court in
Reports
Buffalo,
from
New York.
local media
The
suggested
courtroom
he
was
struggled to
filled
cope
with
public
Cheyenne's
perception
family and friends,
and lost many
all
friendships.
hoping to finally
Diana
see
Robards,
justice for
Frank's
her
first
brutal
wife,
murder.
dealt with her own challenges
The
after the
emotional
trial.
weight of the case
The
was
discovery of her
palpable
husband's
as they
affair
waited
with
for
Cheyenne left her
answers
feeling
and
betrayed
accountability.
bitter.
The prosecution,
However,
led
as
by
time
District
passed,
Attorney
Diana
Jane
found
Mills
solace in
Bunker,
reconnecting
a
with
determined attorney
During
in
the
her late
COVID-19
40s with a
lockdowns in
reputation
2020,
for being
the two
tough on
began talking
crime,
more often.
set the
They
tone
shared
for the
memories
case.
and discussed
She
their children,
painted Dustin
which helped bridge
Robards
the
as a
gap between
troubled
them.
young man
By the summer
whose
of
overwhelming
2021,
jealousy
Frank
and
Diana
emotional
decided to give their
instability
marriage another
ultimately
chance.
pushed
They
him to
realized
murder
they still cared
Cheyenne.
for one another.
Mills
Despite
Bunker
the pain of the
argued that
past,
this wasn't
in a
just a
small,
crime of
intimate
passion.
ceremony, they were
It was a
married,
deliberate
surrounded
act,
only by close
fueled
family
by
members.
obsession,
The couple hoped
manipulation,
this new
and
chapter would
betrayal.
allow them
The
to heal and
prosecution's
move forward
case
together.
hinged on
As for
Dustin's
Dustin,
toxic
he spent his
relationship with
days in prison
Cheyenne,
reflecting
his
on his
obsessive
actions.
behavior,
Reports from
and the
inside
shocking
suggest that he
discovery of their
struggled with the
affair,
reality
which
of what he had
ultimately
done.
led to her
Occasionally, he
tragic
expressed
death.
remorse,
The
but his youthful
prosecution,
arrogance
led by
often
District
overshadowed
Attorney
genuine
Jane Mills
regret.
Bunker, presented
In the end,
Dustin
the
as a
impact of
young
Cheyenne's
man
murder rippled
consumed
through
by
Orchard Park
jealousy and
beyond,
obsession,
serving as a
ultimately
stark
driven
reminder
to
of the
murder.
complexities of love,
Millsbunker
betrayal, and
described the
tragic
dynamics
consequences
of
toxic
Dustin's relationship
relationships.
with Cheyenne,
And so ends another
focusing on
tragic
how
chapter
his
in the
emotional
true crime case
instability
files.
and
A story
possessiveness
of love,
led to the
betrayal,
tragic
and murder,
crime.
where
On
one
the defense
family's
side,
darkest secrets
attorney
led to a
Ivan
grisly and
Gornovich,
violent end.
38,
Tune in
argued that
next time for
Dustin's
another
actions
episode of
were the
True
result
Crime
of an
Case Files.
emotional outburst. He pointed to Dustin's age and the personal struggles he had faced, including his expulsion from college for stalking, as factors that contributed to the incident. Gornovich argued that Dustin had been manipulated by Cheyenne, who had encouraged his feelings while secretly carrying on an affair with his father. He painted Dustin as a victim of his circumstances, hoping to elicit sympathy from the jury. Throughout the trial, Cheyenne's family remained in the courtroom, their emotions shifting between anger and sorrow as the details of the case unfolded. As the trial continued, witnesses testified about the secret affair between Cheyenne and Dustin, revealing the extent of Dustin's obsession with her. Each new detail deepened the pain for Cheyenne's family, leaving them struggling to grasp the full scope of the tragedy. After several days of emotional testimony, the jury began deliberating on December 8, 2015. The jury reached a verdict the following day, convicting Dustin Robards of second-degree murder. Cheyenne's family felt a sense of relief, knowing that justice had been done. However, the reality of the situation was difficult to fully process. They were left to reconcile the fact that someone they had once cared about was behind such a brutal act. On January 20, 2016, Dustin Robards was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. The judge highlighted the importance of holding individuals accountable for crimes driven by emotional manipulation and domestic violence. Cheyenne's family had mixed feelings about the sentence. While some found solace in the fact that Dustin would pay for his actions, others struggled with the pain of knowing that a loved one had been responsible for such a tragic loss. Some members of Cheyenne's family felt that the sentence was too lenient, while others believed that no punishment could ever truly bring closure to the pain they had endured. In the weeks after the trial, her family tried to move forward, but the memory of her brutal murder continued to haunt them. Friends and loved ones of Cheyenne were left grappling with the loss, remembering her vibrant spirit and the life that was tragically cut short.